1992 Jaguar XJS convertible stereo here in this shop. Many cases these things come in dead, won't turn on. Of course, this is the case here as well. There are several things to look at. We're going to show you how to attempt to repair this stereo. Not to say it works in every case, depending on how difficult it may be. But if you're looking for the easy fix, best thing to do is remove the stereo from the dash. And as you remove it from the dash, there will be several connectors on the back of it. It will pull forward, and there will be a ground wire on this screw with a nut on it, securing it to the back of the stereo. Make sure that's on there, and also that the rear connector is plugged into the back of the radio. Here over on the very right side of the radio is the DIN connector for the CD changer, and on the left over here, which is the right side of the back right side of the car stereo, is the antenna connector. What you want to do first, of course, is disconnect the radio. The ground comes off with a nut. The antenna is a pull and push. It's a press fit. And the DIN connector has to line up. There is a key on one side of it. If you have the changer to match the DIN connector up to plug back in. To remove the main connector, at the very top of it, there's a little bulb at the top. And what this is the lock to hold the connector into place on the back of the stereo, and you want to push that down, and as you push it down, wiggle it loose. Now that we have this done, what you want to check to see if power is getting to the radio. This is the main connector here, and of course we're going to need a ground, so in our case we would use a ground on the wire that came off the screw on the back of the stereo. Now this is how the connector looks as it is removed from the radio, and if you notice, the left and right sides match up, and in the center are two connectors that stand together. These are the two we're interested in. Out of these two, the one on the right, we want to check for 12 volts. This is 12 volts at all time. It usually comes in on a white and blue wire, and usually fuse number 6 in the fuse panel. This would be a 5 amp fuse there. Now the one to the left of that one, this is the one that is switched through ignition. So the ignition will have to be on. Test for 12 volts here to make sure you're getting power to the stereo. At no 12 volts, this will be a usually fuse 7, and it's a purple wire in the car. So that hopefully you get the easy one and we're all done. However, I'm going to show you what needs to be done to the car stereo to see if you have a chance at repair. I'm not going to promise repair on this. It is a hit or miss, but I can show you the problem areas and what to look at. First of all, we're going to remove 2 screws out of the back. These are fine threads. They're the 2 longer screws you're going to find in this whole bunch. And then 2 screws on the top cover. We're going to remove the top cover after that. Pry it up to remove it and release it. Now at this point we're going to take our screwdriver and remove 4 screws that secure the cassette deck in place. One of them will have a little lug on it. Usually the right front one up here has a lug on it. You have to be sure to align that when you put it back in. But these 3 of these screws are the same, which will be the fine thread small screw, which is every other screw in this radio, except for this one with the washer on it. This is a coarse thread. Just make note of which hole it comes out of. Usually it's the left front one, but I have seen it in both. I may have seen the radio before someone else got into it. But that secures the cassette mech in there, and we're going to grasp the edges of it, and we're going to wiggle it a little bit, and this will release up here and come up. Now what we have here is a connector on the back of the cassette mechanism, and one here. This usually, when it comes back time to put this in place, the front mech goes in here first, and then it slides down. The connector will align. Watch it go in. And now we're going to set that to the side, and we're going to move to the bottom cover. The reason why we're doing it in this order is on the bottom cover there are 2 mounts here that are secured to the cover, so you'd never get this cover off without removing the cassette player. Now we have 4 screws here, the small fine threads, 2 towards the rear and 2 towards the front. We also had a solder connection here, which we had to apply heat to this area of the circuit board and cover, and as we did that, we pried the cover up to release the solder so we can remove this cover. Now we're going to lift this cover up and remove it. And there will be usually an insulation piece here. You don't have to worry about this till it's time to go back on. It aligns because it fits only in one position. Now we're going to remove this and set that to the side. And this brings us to the main circuit board. I would suggest getting a piece of paper and something to write with. And I'm going to show you what to make notes of here. And what we commonly find with this. This one on first glance looks very good. What we normally have here is I'm going to lift this tape up. This tape secures a component here to the circuit board to lay it down for the cassette mech to fit in. If you notice, everything under the cassette mech is flat, and everything outside it tends to get taller. So some of the areas that have problems are right here, this capacitor. I'm moving this capacitor around right now, and one of the legs isn't even attached. However, when I look real close down in there, next to that capacitor and the transistor down underneath, I can see some black corrosion, usually acid leaking from the component. This is one problem area. We also have sometimes a problem area under this component here, and always under 1, 2, 3 caps here in the back. The reason why I mentioned getting your pen and paper out, you want to draw a diagram of the components you're going to look at here. Now, you should replace all these. The only one you'll have problems replacing will be this one, so usually this one goes back in the board. But normally what we find here with replacing these capacitors, I'm going to remove them first and show you what we're looking at to make this a little clearer. Okay, there's one, and here's the second, and the third one should be right here. Now the problem here is these components have a lifespan, and they measure it their lifespan according to heat, and if the heat gets higher, the lifespan goes down on them. So we're going to remove all these. If you're here right now, you could there's a strange odor in the air. I would I would call it fish smell. And now we've removed several of those components. Let me finish with the rest to see what else we have here. Okay, and the last capacitor. I'm just going to allow us to remove all these components. Now with the 5 components mentioned removed, we're going to take our magnifying glass and see if we can take a better look at these problem areas and see what we have here. Here in the back, if you look underneath that first component on the far left, you can see there's some black on the circuit board. Looking back over towards the one in the center, difficult to see. There doesn't seem to be much there in the way of black, but I can see some there as well. The last component's down in the dark there. But here in the center, through the magnifying glass, you can see that sort of the circuit board. The main circuit board is a dark green. All the traces between components are going to be the light shiny green. We can see that there's some brownness over a major path here, and this is usually the leakage from the capacitors. And we're going to take a Q-tip and pick this all right up. Now this is the acid leakage I've mentioned. This is just from the center of the board here, cleaning this up. And taking a closer look after getting this cleaned up, I can see right down here there's like 6 or 7 traces that go up and down. One tends to have a black spot in it here, and the other has a little black mark here. We might be able to scrape all this off and clean it up. Back under the back corner, like I had mentioned earlier, this area has a lot of blackness. You can see some of the copper trace, and the green tint on the top has been deteriorated. We're going to clean these areas all up look for open traces, which we usually have under the black corrosion on the circuit boards. And we're also going to take a close look at the back side of the circuit board, where the components were located. And this one looks very clean here in the center, along with that capacitor that was laying down. Going across the back, this seems to be pretty clean in the area of one of the caps. The center cap, I can tell here there's another trace right here between this silver dot and this tab right here. That is a dark color, so we're going to have to clean it up, see if the trace is good, maybe put a jumper in there as well. And the last capacitor looks pretty clean as well. The whole thing to this is to be able to clean the circuit board up and replace these components. Again, this one is so short, you're probably just going to clean it up and put it back into the radio. But in many cases, this can bring the radio back. For many of these radios that I've seen, this one has practically no damage to it compared to many I've seen. So this one should be a simple repair. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see our website as well.